welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a viewer requested video, and that is makeup brushes and how to use them. So you guys asked and I delivered. So before we get into it, I need you to click that subscribe button right there or right there. And after you click that subscribe button, if you haven't already subscribed, okay? Because if you are subscribed, don't re-click it because then I'll unsubscribe you. And I think that's happened before. So if you have not subscribed already, go ahead, click the subscribe button. And after you do that, make sure you hit the little bell notification too. That way you will get a notification every time I post a video. How does that sound? Okay. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to go through each brush in the way that I use them, in the order that I use them, and try to explain it. I'll have demos, and actually it's going to be a demo of me using each of the brushes to create this beautiful look right here. And I will mention all the products that I use in the links and descriptions below. Okay, so if you want to purchase them, you can as well. And yeah, so the first brush that I'm going to tell you about is the foundation brush. So I'm specifically doing this video on brushes because if you've watched my channels before, you know I use a sponge for a lot of my foundation groundwork, but I'm not doing the beauty blender because everyone kind of knows what that's for and how to use it because I use it in every single video. So I'm going to go with only brushes, okay? So my new foundation brush, it's pretty cool. It's by Real Techniques. It is some kind of special edition brush, I don't remember, but it's a 301. And I like this brush because it's flat. It's easy to stipple if you want, or to buff out your foundation if that's what you're into. And at the top, it kind of points just a little bit, like it's not in a triangle, but it kind of points just a little bit so you can get in the corners of your eyes and stuff like that. So I'm really digging this brush, and it gives you a flawless finish. And what I can say about using an actual brush to apply your foundation with, you will get a full flawless coverage. As opposed to using a beauty blender, you use it wet, so the coverage might be slightly more sheer. And then using a not wet or a dry beauty blender, it's difficult to maneuver and it's not as bouncy or as nice or easy to use, I think. So after we do foundation, my next step is concealer. And you never see me apply my concealer with a brush, but there are concealer brushes and I do have them. This is the concealer brush right here. As you can tell, I just used it. By the way, I didn't clean my brushes. That's gonna be in the next video. But the concealer brush, this one's small, and I have a larger one right here too. So I use these after I apply my concealer to blend it out. And the reason why I don't use these brushes so much anymore is because they're small and they take longer to blend out. So the Beauty Blender is perfect for blending out any kind of concealers, and that's what I prefer to use. But yeah, every single probably brush kit comes with a concealer brush. And yeah, that's how you use it. You just want to pat down on your eyes, pat down the product. Don't smear it because that will actually make it not conceal as well. You want to just pat it down so it will stay in the vicinity that you put it. You don't want to smear it around and then you have kind of like sheer coverage, especially if you have dark circles under your eyes. You need that bad boy to stay in place. So it's very important that you pat down the concealer as opposed to dragging it. If you're going to drag it, I would only drag it right under your lash line, just so you can get it all up in the corner, because it's very hard to pat no matter how small your brush is. It's very hard to pat in that area of your eye, so that's the only place I would recommend you doing that at. But other than that, pat it down. Okay, so next, after I pat my concealer down, I need to set it. And again, the Beauty Blender is the perfect tool for this, but this is a brush video and how to use it. So this is the brush that I use for my, this is the brush that I use for my powder. So you will see this brush being used to wipe off my setting powder, but you can also use it to apply. It's very big and dense, but it's very fluffy at the top. This is a Real Techniques brush as well. It's just called a powder brush. This does not have a number to this series, but this is one of the more popular brush sets. And yeah, the downfall of this brush is that it's so big, you can't really apply it to a concentrated area without getting everywhere. As you can see, it kind of gets places where I don't need to be, but it's okay. It's just powder, and powder will wipe off. And I also use this brush to set the rest of my face, but I go in more concentrated under my eyes so that I can get that finish that I want to get, that brightness underneath my eyes. So that's why I put more powder there with this brush. Next is the contour. So I have a couple of different brushes that I contour with. The first one I use to buff out along my chin or any like large areas. I use this brush. This is also Real Techniques brush. Do you see pattern going on here? I like Real Techniques brushes. This is called a buffing brush. You can also use a buffing brush to buff out your foundation. To give you like a flawless airbrush finish. I don't really like to use it for that because I don't like, I think the area of this brush is just too small for that. I like to work a little quicker than this brush will probably allow me to buff out my foundation. But it's good for that. It's very densely packed and it holds a good amount of product up here, as you can tell. But yeah, I like to go along my jawline and buff out the contour that I apply, and to the larger areas and to the smaller areas on my cheekbones, right underneath my cheekbones. I use this Morphe M458 brush, M459 brush by Morphe. I like this brush because it's short and dense. So it really allows you to either blend out cream concealer or apply a contour. It allows you to apply a powder contour as well as buff out a cream contour that you've applied. I've never used this to apply a cream contour. I would not recommend it for that. If you need something to apply your cream contour with, I think probably one of the best things to do is either use a concealer brush or maybe your fingers. But I have contour and stick, so I just, apply it with the actual stick and then use this to buff it out and bring it down a little more further into my jawline, or into right under the apples of my cheeks. Also, what I use to contour to do smaller spaces like at the top of my head is this small Real Techniques contour brush. So this is actually used for contouring. I'll go up here and buff out my brush with this, my contour on my forehead with this. I don't use the buffing brush because I sometimes feel like that has the potential to take off foundation if you use it too hard, which is why I use it like on my jawline to where you can't really see and I'm kind of just blending in and creating a shadow right there. I also love to apply a powder concealer, like a grayish cool tone powder concealer like this one from Anastasia Beverly Hills. It's actually a blush, but I use it as a powder contour because of the ashiness and gray. And this is a perfect color to create a shadow line. And this is a perfect brush to do that. So over my cream contour on my jawbone, I will go over that using this brush and this shade right here to create more of the depth and give me more of a shadow look. After that, I apply my bronzer. Now for my bronzer, I go back to my buffing brush. I like this because it picks up a good amount of bronzer and I can just buff it lightly in the places where I need to be bronzed. Wherever. So that's part one for my face brushes. I have a part two, which I complete after my eyes. But for now, we're gonna get into the eyes. Now, I like to start my eyes with my brows. A lot of times I do this off camera, but for this video, I'm doing my brows on camera for you. So this is like the easiest way that I can figure out to apply my brows. It takes a little time, it takes a little work, a little effort, but once you get it, it's super easy. So I use the Anastasia Beverly Hills number 12 brush. This is specifically made for their dip brow gel. It has a spoolie at one end, their dip brow pomade. It has a spoolie at one end, which you brush out your eyebrows with before you apply the pomade. And then on this end, it has an angled tip. This brush is super easy to use. You use it like a pencil and you create light, short strokes to mimic the texture of hair. But the trick with this is to start with a little and then add on. So if you like the darker brows, you know, the bolder brows, go for it. But if you like something more natural or just to fill in, go with light strokes. And this brush will be your best friend when it comes to your brows. Now this has been smushed in my makeup bag when I was traveling this weekend, so it's a little flat. But this is one of my favorite brushes to use. It came with an Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, so it's the brushes that come in all of her palettes. But this right here, I love to just go in and dab on my eye color right at the very corner of my eye, and then slightly shade the crease and bring it all the way over to my inner eye. And this brush works perfectly because it applies color very well. It's not too dense. It's not tapered off really. I can't really even tell now because it's so smushed. But yeah, it holds color really well. But it also lets go of the color easy. So it's easy to use this brush for multiple colors. All you have to do is dust it off and all the colors out there, and you can switch to your next color. And it's very convenient, and that's why I use this brush so much, and I always start off with this brush. The second brush that I'm gonna go onto my lids with for my lid color is going to be this Morphe E14 brush. You see me use this all the time. I wanted a large brush that I can apply my lid color with, and this brush right here, let me see. This brush actually does just that. It does the trick. You see how big the brush head is? So it applies my lid color very bold with the pigment. As far as the pigment is concerned, you can pack it on there. And yeah, just really, I don't think there's much to say about this brush. And then once I have those two colors on there, I go back with a crease shadow brush, which is a slightly tapered brush. And I kind of pick up the color, my first color that I used on my my crease, and I pick up a little bit of that color, and I start to blend along the lines of the lid color and the crease color just to blend it in. And this is one of my favorite brushes too. It's a Sephora 73 Sephora crease brush. So this is my thing right here. The next thing I'm gonna use is not a brush, and I know I said this was a brush video, but it's actually the most convenient tools you ever have for your makeup, and that is your finger. So I use my finger to apply a kind of like maybe glitters or kind of shimmers, translucent shimmers, something that I just plan on packing on, or slightly packing on, I want to say topping, a topper. I use my fingers when I want to apply a topper to my eyeshadows. Now to get underneath my waterline, underneath my eyes, I go in with a smaller brush. This is a MAC 105S. I'm not sure if they make this anymore, but I'm sure it does. They do. And I used to actually use this. Look how small it is. I used to actually use this brush for my lid color. But yeah, this used to be my girl right here, but now I just use her to do smaller jobs. So sometimes I'll go in the inner corner and apply that, or sometimes I'll go underneath and apply my eyeshadow underneath, and I like it because you can kind of smudge as you go, and that's super convenient when all you have to do is pick up one brush instead of doing multiple brushes, and it kind of makes it quicker that way. Okay, now for like one of my favorite parts, my inner corner, I'm going to go in with this super small brush. It's from Real Techniques. It came in the same set as my other bronze Real Technique brushes, and it does not have a name, but it's a little bitty itty bitty baby brush. Can you see? It's tapered, it's synthetic materials, synthetic fibers, and I use this sometimes for my inner corner. Now I also use my fingers for my inner corner, so it just depends on how I feel. But that brush gives you very precise application, so you can't overdo it with the inner corner. So that was pretty much all the brushes that I use for my eyes. Now we are going to go back to the face and apply blush. So blush brushes come in a couple of different shapes. You might have a round, which I don't have, but this is a powder brush. But there's blush brushes that resemble this shape, which is kind of round or ovally, or you could have a slanted, which is this. This is a dual brush. It's from Sephora. It's the 201. One side is for blush, one side is for powder. And I like this because it's 2-in-1. So when I go travel, I just take one brush and that's all I need. I don't have to take my big powder brush if I don't want to, because this does exactly that, except it's slightly smaller. So I like this blush brush because it's angled, and it's easier for me to apply my brush and bring it up my jawline or up my cheekbone instead of just like one, I don't know, it's just more comfortable. It's more contoured to my face. I don't even know how to describe that. It's just a thing that I'm into. So it's not necessary to have an angled blush brush, but I just like it, and I think it applies brush so much smoother. After that, it's time for the highlight, which is the highlight of my look. So I'm gonna take my Laura Mercier highlight in the color 01, and I'm going to use this little fan brush right here. Now this fan brush is something I got in a palette that someone gave me for Christmas. It's from the Color Workshop. And I'm not a brush snob. I don't use like cheap brushes, like the little sponges that come in some of the makeup kits. But this one, if it's cheap, like that's not the reason I won't use it. I don't like using cheap quality brushes. So it has nothing to do with the price, all to do with the quality. So this came from the Color Workshop, and it's a highlight brush, and it works just as good as any other highlight brush. And to be more specific, this is a highlight fan brush. So as you can see, you use it to fan on slightly. I like it because you can be very gentle and ladylike with it and dust it on and just feel so cute. But it's so dainty, and I like that about this brush. There's also another highlight brush that I have. It's from Fenty Beauty. It's the Fenty Beauty 120 highlight brush. It's this right here. I use her, but she's very dense. So this is good for blending out cream highlighters. But if you use this for powder, I feel like sometimes it gets a little streaky, but that's just me. I don't know if maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I like the contour part of it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope it was very informative for you today. And this is just how I use my brushes. And honestly, I don't even use some of these brushes like this, but I did it for the purpose to highlight how some of the brushes in my collection can be used. There's a lot more brushes out there. The set that I have that I showed in this video is pretty basic. You can even probably cut down on a couple brushes. Like I said, I use my fingers for a lot of stuff, or my beauty blender for even more things. And really, you know, I don't even need that brush because I don't really need the variety of brushes. But like I said, brushes are a personal preference, and they depend on the technique that you're trying to use when you're applying makeup. So use this as a guide, not the Bible, but if you're new to makeup and you know all these different kind of brushes just confuse you and intimidate you, this is a good guide. So I hope you guys learned something from it. And let me know in the comments what's your favorite brushes to use. Let me know if you like this video by giving it a thumbs up. If you've made it this far, I would really appreciate it. And that helps me keep track of how well I'm engaging my audience. So thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you later.